Danganronpa.
Welcome to the Danganronpa Experience, where we will be taking a look at the popular Japanese game franchise Danganronpa. Developed by Spike Chunsoft and created by Kazutaka Kodaka. Every Danganronpa game has a simple premise, where 15 or 16 students are trapped in a location where they are forced to participate in a deadly killing game. While Danganronpa may not be a full-on horror game, the overall idea of it is pretty dark enough that it makes it at least worth playing for horror fans. And since the franchise is very story-heavy, it's going to be difficult to avoid a few spoilers. But I will try my best to give the video as spoiler-free as possible for the people who haven't experienced it yet. So for the video games, I'm only gonna show footage from chapters 1 and 2, as showing footage from other chapters is basically a spoiler. Today we will be looking at the first game that started it all, and its anime adaptation. So without further ado, let's start the Danganronpa Experience.
Danganronpa.
The first game in the franchise, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, originally released in 2010 for the PlayStation Portable in Japan and was later localized in 2014. It's available for the PS Vita, PS4, PC, Mac, and Linux. In Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, we follow the story of Makoto Naegi, an ordinary student chosen to attend the elite high school Hope's Peak Academy, where only the best of the best are allowed to get in. And our ordinary main protagonist Makoto was only chosen after winning a lottery, earning him the title the ultimate lucky student. But once he steps inside a school, he immediately passes out and wakes up in an empty classroom, where he discovers that all of the windows have been boarded by a metal plate, and he meets 14 other students who are in the same situation as he is. This Sayaka Maizono, the ultimate pop sensation, Junkei Nishima, the ultimate fashionista, Leon Kawara, the ultimate baseball star, Kyoko Kirigiri, Chihiro Fujisaki, ultimate programmer, Mondo Owara, the ultimate bike gang leader, Byakuya Togami, the ultimate affluent progeny, Kyutaka Ishimaru, the ultimate moral compass, Hifumi Yamada, ultimate fanfic creator, Celestia Ludenberg, the ultimate gambler, Aoi Asahina, the ultimate swimming pro, Sakura Ogami, the ultimate martial artist, Toko Fukawa, ultimate writing prodigy, and Yasuhiro Hagekure, the ultimate clairvoyant. After the brief introduction, they are called by a mysterious figure seen on the nearby monitor, which instructs them to go to the gymnasium, where there they meet a remote-controlled bear with an odd design named Monokuma, and he tells the student that they are forever trapped in the school and must adapt to it unless they murder one another. I'm going to leave the story at that, as one of the best things about Danganronpa is discovering the truth on your own. There are a total of 6 chapters in Danganronpa, and each of them are divided into 2 parts, the school life and the class trials, and I'll explain more of this later. All of the characters that you meet in the game are unique and lovable. While some start off as very unlikable characters, it's not too long till you get to know them and actually sympathize with them. Yes, even the most douchiest of them all. I'm talking about you, Byakuya. And it's all thanks to the great dialogue, character interactions, and voice acting. The game isn't really fully voice acted outside of the class trials. Whenever you talk to the characters, it's all just a bunch of short voice lines. But this really adds to the game's charm, and I kinda wish that every visual novel game does this. Another thing that adds to the game's charm is its unique art style. Everything looks like it's made out of cardboard cutouts, and whenever you step into a room, one by one everything will pop out and bounce. It's so rad. Even the game's blood is so stylish. And of course, music is a very important part of the Danganronpa experience. Since you'll mostly be spending your time reading all the dialogue text, it's only natural for it to have a very groovy music. And I'm very happy to say that Danganronpa's music is very groovy and iconic, and it fits the games perfectly.
Danganronpa.
So for the gameplay, it is separated into 2 parts, the daily life and the class trials. The daily life is basically where the everyday story will progress, and you will be able to explore the school grounds in the 3D environments and interact with other students. And it's also where Monokuma's sadistic and despair-inducing motives appear, and it is used as a very important plot point in each chapter. But there are also the free time events to give a bit of a break from everything. And it's where you are able to spend your time with your favorite character and get to know more about their personalities and backstories outside of the main story. And it also gives a bit of a perspective on some of the characters before they die, which is kinda sad and depressing. Giving them the right presents will not only reveal more about their past, but it will also unlock some special skills for you to be able to use in the class trials. Some of these skills that you can acquire are cool and composed, which will steady your aim during the minigames, and mutual liberation, a skill that will make your focus gauge decrease slowly, and is one of the most useful skills in the game. My personal favorite FTE would probably be Kyoko's, as it not only explores her friendship with Makoto, but it also foreshadows a very important plot twist in the game. Also, blushing Kyoko is kinda cute. But of course, it's not that long till a piece is interrupted. In the mastermind sadistic game, killing is not enough to be able to escape. You must also be able to get away with it with no one suspecting you. Once a body has been discovered, the investigation segment of the game will occur, where you must search for all the possible clues around the school. The investigation plays like a point and click game, where you must click every single thing that is around you, and it's impossible to miss a clue as the game will not let you progress or get out of the room if you haven't acquired all of it. And once you've acquired every clue, the class trial will now commence. Every class trial is full of twists, turns, and despair. All of the remaining students must participate in the class trials, and their goal is to uncover the truth of what had happened. If they guess the right killer, also known as the Blackened, then he or she will be punished in the most absurd and over-the-top way possible. And if they guess wrong, then all of them besides the Blackened will be punished instead. And by punish, well, I meant executed. The class trials is the most gameplay heavy of them all, as each trial has a minigame that requires you to solve. There's Hangman's Gambit, where you must complete the missing words by shooting the correct letters. It's a pretty easy and direct minigame, though there are some times where it took me a while to guess the word itself. And the opposite of easy and direct would probably be the bullet time battle. It's one of the most unique minigames and it's also a pain in the ass. Here you must shoot all the students' arguments while in rhythm. If you played a rhythm game before, then it wouldn't be a problem for you, unlike me. And the closing argument, where you must piece all the evidence together to know the complete truth. My problem with this minigame is that it only accepts a specific panel for the manga. There are some panels where it basically displays the same events but it still wouldn't accept it, as it doesn't fit with the narration. And it's kind of annoying, as it requires you to listen to the dialogue first to be able to correctly fit all the pieces together. And not to mention how if you've made one mistake, even if it's intentional, it would still deplete your health. If only the game gave some kind of clue on what panel to use first, instead of forcing you to listen to the dialogue. It's a very trial and error minigame. And there's the non-stop debate, where you must search for the contradictions or weak points in the students' statements, using the evidences that you've acquired, now turned into truth bullets. Each chapter, a new feature in the non-stop debate is added to mix things up, and makes everything more challenging, such as the white noises, multiple truth bullets, and more. But even with these constant additions, the minigame is never way too complicated that it changes the mechanics of it. And just like the investigations, the class trials are very easy, even when set to the highest difficulty. But this is actually great, as it doesn't feel overwhelming when solving a case. I mean, it's not like you can solve the mystery while trying to focus on the minigames, right? There's just way too many things happening all at once, which is why making the minigames easy balances everything. Now I've seen the anime first before playing the video game, so I already knew who the killers and victims were, so I can't really say how impactful or predictable they really are. But do you know that not all of the characters are safe in the killing game, and even the characters that you thought would live could even die first. Trigger Happy Havoc is a great starting point for the franchise. It has an interesting set of characters, mind-blowing story and plot twists, and experimental yet fun multiple mechanics. What else could you ask for?
Danganronpa
After the despair-inducing main story, a minigame called School Mode, also known as the Enchanting Dangan Academy, purely prismatic souls will be unlocked, and it serves as a what-if story where the mastermind's sadistic killing game never took place. It's thought of similar to the main story, with Makoto passing out after entering the school premises and meeting all of the other students. But it soon goes off the rails once Monokuma appears with his fourth wall-breaking dialogues, and he instructs the students to build him a backup for them to be able to leave the school grounds, and you're only given 50 days to build what Monokuma has asked. The writing is not on par with the main game. In fact, there's barely any dialogue to begin with. This mode seems to be more focused on the gameplay and simulation, rather than the story and character interactions. And it would make sense, but because the game was so eager to have you start playing already, that when the actual minigame was finally presented, I was so overwhelmed. There were simply way too many things for me to process, and it's not helped by the poor and rushed explanation of the events. Basically, you must gather materials all around the school to create Monokuma's backups. And while doing so, you must also clean the school, or else Monokuma will force everyone. And you can do this task by assigning the students which activity they must do. The minigame itself starts off pretty annoying and overwhelming, but after a few hours of playing, I found it to be really enjoyable and addicting. After work, you are given a short break where you are able to interact with the other students, similar to the main story's free time events. But what separates it from the FTEs is that the breaks are basically just a way for you to be able to take your favorite character to a date. And you can only ask them out by using a trip ticket, an item that is rewarded after completing one of Monokuma's backups. And each date will consume one ticket. When hanging out with your favorite character, you must choose the correct answers to be able to get through their hearts. Well, more like thoughts. As when you manage to get 10 hearts, the Trigger Happy event will trigger, where you'll be able to hear what the person you are with is thinking. And if you manage to succeed, you will unlock the character's special ending with Makoto, where they'll give you their most treasured item, their own underwear. It is such a bonkers minigame. Though for a dating sim, there's really not a lot of talking. It's just the same dialogue and questions repeated all over again. Though it at least develops one of the characters from the main story that sadly passed away early. Oh, and who could forget about Monokuma's annoying announcement that would play every single 5 minutes. It's a very charming minigame, but don't expect it to be more than what it is. It's simply a simulation minigame that happened to have your favorite Danganronpa characters.
Danganronpa.
3 years later, after Trigger Happy Havoc's release, an anime adaptation of the first game was made, and it features the same story and cast of characters from the video game. And this is actually my first introduction to the series. It's a pretty straightforward adaptation. It takes a 30-hour worth of story of the game and crams it into a total of 13 episodes. A single chapter is separated into 2 episodes. And each of those episodes covers the gameplay mechanics of the video game, the daily life, and the class trials. Basically, one episode is all about the character interactions and development, while the other episode is exclusively about the class trials. After finishing the game, I found it very difficult to get into the anime. And it's weird since when I first saw this, I remember it being really good. But sadly, that just isn't the case for it anymore. Everything feels super rushed, which kind of hurts the experience. Some of the characters act very out of character, and the class trials, well, that seems to be the worst aspect of this adaptation. In the game, every class trial takes about 2 hours to finish. And it's a shame that in this adaptation, even if the class trial itself has its own dedicated episode, everything feels super rushed. Some mysteries in the game took about 20 minutes to solve, while in here it was mostly just 3 to 5 minutes. So that's why whenever they solve something, it doesn't feel earned or satisfying, as there was no build-up. Whenever they investigate, they just show you a short frame of the evidence and that's it. They don't explain what it is and how it's connected to the murders. So the audience can't even piece the events together themselves. And it also skips a lot of details which changes some of the Blackens' plan for the murders. And it even creates some plot holes that never existed in the game. And some of the game's mechanics also appear in the anime as a major part of its design, such as the Hangman's Gambit and the truth bullets that flies all over the screen. And it is very distracting. And it mostly just breaks the immersion that this anime has. I know we wanted to be as faithful as possible, but it just ended up making things worse. Whenever those appear, it makes me want to just play the game instead. It did reference one of the game's mechanics in the final episode, and it was nice. If only the mechanics were just referenced instead. But at least it tried to be as faithful, and it didn't change a lot of the story, which some video game movie and TV adaptation suffers from. It even recreates some of the game's CGs and sprites shot for shot, which is great. And I love the credits for the anime, especially the end credits, where each episode it would add a new character to the scene. I watched the whole series with the Japanese audio this time, as the English dub was just, well, distractingly bad. It's annoyingly different and silly, now that they've replaced all the voice actors except for Makoto. Some are just too over the top that I immediately changed back to the Japanese audio. I mean, come on, they even gave Yasuhiro some kind of accent. Kirigiri now sound way too active, and Junko is now an annoying valley girl. Why? I don't remember Junko having that accent in the game. It completely ruins her character. For the newcomers, it's a very decent show full of murders and despair. Well, if you're watching the Japanese audio, that is. But for the people who played the game, it's not that good, and it will be better for you to just skip it entirely. But if you really wanna watch this, I'd suggest to just think of it as a summary of the video game, rather than an actual adaptation to avoid disappointment. Of course, that is only the beginning of the Danganronpa Experience, and there will be more to come. Next time, we will be taking a look at the sequel Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair, and Trigger Happy Havoc's prequel novel, Danganronpa 0.